Well, so this is time for a break, and I want to tell everyone, these guys up here, I've been in their seats. They have been in a blender. They are being put through the ringer. We're asking them a whole bunch of questions. So remember that these are friendly folks that want to talk to you, and we're going to take 5-7 minutes now, take a stretch, everybody take a bio break. But also, if you got questions for these guys, we're going to come back, and we're not going to talk about homelessness. And if you have questions, go ahead and write them on a card, pass them up, and we'll reconvene at 3:35. I heard you did great. Create income inequality in communities. The City of Boulder, in alliance with Boulder Housing Partners, which is the HUD Housing Authority for Boulder, so it's a federal authority, a partner with the city. Boulder Housing Partners manages 4,000 units of affordable housing, which is 8.3% of Boulder's housing stock, with 8,700 people living within. This is Boulder's social housing system that we have now. The stated goal is to get from that 8.3% to 15% of Boulder's housing designated as permanently deemed restricted affordable. So question to the candidates, starting with Taisha. Do you agree with the goal of 15%? Why or why not? Do you think we're moving fast enough? And if not, how would you accelerate progress? Taisha.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I work very closely on federal issues that cross both the housing, health and human services, and environmental space and education space. And from those perspectives, I can say that this goal may not be reflective of the funds that are available right now through the Inflation Reduction Act. There are specific dollars that are set aside for affordable housing and housing affordability. And so my concern is that this goal, when it was developed, may not be responsive to the current resources that are available. So that's something that I would need to check on as far as that specific percentage. Having said that, I'm going to go back to the safety conversation, because as an African American, I can tell you there's not a day that I feel safe in this community. At any time, something can happen. Why? Because some things have happened in the past. So if you can please watch the documentary, This Is Not Who We Are. Please do this, because then you can see that I'm so sorry. We are not safe. I wish that I was not. I wish that the only place, it would be my dream, that the only place that I wasn't safe was on a creek path. I wish that that was my life, but it most certainly is not. And not just for me, but other people in all of the margins, in all of the ways. These are your family members, if you look deep enough, if you're honest enough. So I want safety for everybody, everywhere, all the time. Having said that, I will move on to city staffing. Another issue we have not discussed in this conversation. We have retention issues and we're not paying our staff. So again, when we're talking about all of these things, it all is contingent upon making sure that we are appropriately staffing our systems. Did you know that our municipal building has AC problems? I felt like I was in Mississippi. I know my taxes don't reflect this. So this is what I'm saying, there's cracks. I'm ready to look under the hood, and I'm ready to do the work.
Great, thank you, Taisha. Yeah, Waylon, do you agree with the 15% goal for social housing? And do you think we're moving fast enough towards it, and how would you accelerate it?
Sure. Kinda. And let's talk for a couple minutes. So, 15%. We're barely halfway. We're just over halfway there. So sure, 15% would be, the happiest day in Boulder, right? That would be an amazing achievement. So, am I going to say 20, 25%? Sounds good. I'm good for that too. I have a hat we made years ago with Elephant Journal. My business is Make Boulder Weird Again. We are losing our friends every single year. We're inaccessible to diversity every single year, to new people coming in. Our schools are in danger of closing because families can't afford to raise their children here. So, yeah, affordability is important. I'm sure there's experts out there that would say, 23.8% is the minimum, for a blue zone kind of amazing thing if you've been watching that documentary. I'm fine with 15%. I find it a little irrelevant what our goal is right now. Our goal really should be to move forward quickly. I actually think we've made some amazing progress. When I met with Elisa Jones, who's endorsing me, she reminded me, you know, the surrounding cities are less than 1% affordability. We're at, what is it, 8.3%? So yeah, we've done some great work. I went for a bike tour at Boulder Housing Partners, encourage everyone to do that. They want people to do it, and their properties are amazing. You have bikes strewn on yards. There's a Latino family I got to talk with who has corn growing in their flower bed instead of just flowers. It's a victory garden. This is the kind of community I think in a lot of ways we grew up in here when it was kind of affordable by default. Now the market rate is ridiculous. It's inequity on Zillow, right, reflected. So yes, we need to move more quickly. I met with the head Jeremy at the end and I said, what would it take to double the speed of what you're doing? He said, what we're doing is working, it's financially feasible, we just need the support and we can do it. And obviously it doesn't all have to be DHB and I'm out of time.
You are. Thank you. Mike, what did Silas have to say about this question?
The goal needs to be at least 25%, is what Owen said, at least. Based on current estimations that 25% of Boulder population is living in poverty. We need to move faster by unlocking additional funding, existing partnerships, and fostering new sources of revenue. There needs to be a move away from sales tax and toward property taxes. Paying a higher property tax is not popular, and I would ask that we all have patience, as higher taxes are an inconvenience in the short term for the longer term gains. We also must shift spending away from criminalizing poverty to housing and supportive services. It has been proven that it's cheaper to house us than to jail us, which makes the city of Boulder more fiscally responsible.
Very good. Thank you. Jock.
Yeah, so currently 15% seems like a good goal, but if you look on the city website, it's a little plateauing a little bit. We're not quite on track to hit that. I believe the year goal was set at 2035, so we're just a little bit off of that. So I'd like to see us increase our speed to get there. You know, ways we have our inclusionary housing, linkage fee, down payment assistance program. I believe we should fund those and look to increase those to hit our goal a little bit faster. I'm committed to not only getting affordable housing for low income, but also the middle income. I feel like the middle income has almost been forgot about, as stated last night in the city council meeting. It looks like we're leaning one way or the other instead of in the middle and finding a combined approach. So that's something I'm committed to, is finding that combined approach, because as we've seen across the country, our middle income, the middle class is disappearing. There's a huge wealth disparity, and we need to figure out solutions to that. Currently, we have about 10% of our office spaces that are vacant. I would really like to see the city look into redeveloping these and rezoning these for either mixed commercial living or permanently affordable housing. These would provide opportunities that are relatively easy to create these changes, and they already have access to utilities, so it'd be a quicker fix than building new developments. When developing these, we need to look at how we're developing them and include them in 15-minute neighborhoods where people don't necessarily need to have a car, so they're able to get around through alternative transportations, walk, bike, bus. We need to increase access to multimodal transportations through these affordable developments. Currently, about 59% of renters in Boulder are cost burden on their living costs, and about 50% of them are, I guess most of them are spending about 50% of them, spending 50% of their monthly income on living costs. This is unacceptable for an inclusive community. We need more equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Eric.
Probably going to echo a lot of what Josh and Waylon said. I think them being born here gives them a really unique perspective. So 15% is a good goal for now. I think it is vital that we work towards that goal and then probably move it higher once we get there. Like, we should not just get there and then be like plateau. I think 25% is a great goal. I think we should be continually working to make Boulder a more welcoming place for more people. Like, that should not be a thing that we get to. That should be a continual process, just a part of how we're living is how do we make Boulder be a more welcoming place for more people. Are we moving fast enough? I think we could be moving faster, but it sounds like there's a lot of good things already in motion. A lot of staff is working pretty well on this, as Waylon kind of reflected. I do think we need to look at middle income more. I was a little saddened by city council meeting last night, how quickly city council just kind of shut down the proposal for middle income. I would have liked to have seen more discussion. I guess it was late and probably all wanted to go to sleep. Yeah, because I really think that it is vital that we work to address the range of people who need to be welcomed in Boulder. And right now, it's probably easier to live in Boulder by making less money than by making middle money. And what that does is it means that we can't have our police officers living here. We can't have health workers living here. There's a lot of people who aren't able to live here, and that is creating a lot of other impacts in our community that we really need to address. So I think we do need to work to address middle income and work to create more sustainable structures that are going to help a whole range of incomes and humans be welcoming here. So how do we do that? One step at a time. That's all I got for time.
Thank you.
This is a curiously technical question. I might generalize it along the lines of, why is our population declining year on year in Boulder? Why is our school district enrollment reducing each year? Why is traffic getting worse, not better? There's 50,000 cars, more or less, coming into town every day for a town that has 100,000 residents. What's going on and what's the plan? That's another form of the question. And I would offer that we lack accessible housing in general. And there's perhaps three kind of points to this. One is the level of affordable price points. Another is the types of housing, middle housing. That would include everything from cottage courts to triplexes to duplexes to small homes and others. And then what's my third one? Sufficient. Oh yeah, and then sufficient levels overall, so that people have places to live near where they need to go. This is a scourge in so many ways. I've talked about traffic. We also, our workforce, families. I have my kid's family. My daughter Eva's, one of her friends' parents, they're leaving town. They're going to get the price out of the rent, so they're going to move to another town. So this is about what are we doing about housing? And in general, we need to be thinking about reforming zoning to make it easier to build more middle housing options in town. We need to get rid of parking subsidies, significantly reform parking subsidies, so that we can let people live where currently we just put cars, and in so doing reduce traffic. We need to reduce a huge amount of administrative friction that anybody who's tried to build or work in the building industry here knows about. And we need to get the most out of the annexations. We'll talk about this in the next question to some extent, but we have some opportunities to build the types of communities we'll actually add people-first, transit-rich housing as we go.
Great, thank you, Brian. All right, and the last set piece question, and I have a few other questions over here, but the last one is, land acquisition and land costs are at the heart of housing affordability challenges in Boulder and worldwide. In addition to increasing density on current city land to increase housing availability, there are two major blocks of land which could be developed with an intense focus on affordable housing: the Boulder Airport and the Boulder Planning Reserve, which is about 600 acres north of town. Each of these has groundwork to accomplish before their consideration in the 2025 Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan update. So whoever's on the next council is going to get to touch our land use planning Bible. And so this question, it's going to start with Waylon and go down. Waylon, would you like to see either or both of these projects, the airport or the planning reserve, advance in time for the 2025 comp plan update? And how would you like to see these land blocks handled? Bill?
Yes. Yes. We just talked about affordability, access, families, missing middle. There's no way you can care about all those subjects and say no. I come before you today to say I care about prairie dogs and affordability both. There are other properties we own, the golf course, but I don't want to lose all the votes in one 2 minutes each. And yeah, we should be looking at what we can. With the airport, obviously that's controversial. Wherever there's controversy, that means we need to listen. We need to meet with people. We need to find a solution that works for folks. The vast majority, as Mark Wallach always points out, of constituents and needs is directed at affordable housing. I don't know if you understand, because I didn't used to understand, but when the city owns a property, that means we can do a lot more affordability there than when a developer is in charge. So these two properties are, you know, again, holy grails that we can pull down and we can say, here's a Boulder with teachers, with police, with, you know, middle income folks, healthcare workers, etc., who all can actually live here and raise families here. We don't have to have our schools empty out and collapse. So yes, yes, yes. There was some other question in there. Oh, these glorious seconds fading away. Was there something I didn't touch on?
How do you want to see it develop, Waylon? How would you
Oh,
approach it?
yeah, so the only part that's no is I don't really want to wait until 2025. Can we get elected already and start on it? The airport will take, you know, 19, 20 years even to get going. It's complicated with the FAA, and am I out of time now? Okay, and but we should look at that. And just because it's complicated doesn't mean we can't do it. The secret sauce in terms of homelessness, in terms of everything, is talking and listening to each other. So we're going to have to do that to get the airport to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. What does Silas have to say about these big lamp lots?
I am not in favor of unlocking the planning reserve. Locating housing there at this point would exacerbate sprawl, increase costs for infrastructure, and put people farther away from services. The increase in density needs to be the primary focus, as there are many opportunities for smart infill along existing transit corridors where services and infrastructure already exist. Prime example is the parking lot at Broadway and Walnut stretching to 13th Street, or like, no, that's another story. That could be retail on the ground floor and housing on 2 or 3 floors above, or all housing. That's
Okay, very good. Chuck, 2 minutes.
Yep, thank you. So for the airport, I would be more in favor of looking at the airport first, specifically looking at high and medium density, permanently affordable housing units, and we could look at trading off for the minimum parking requirements, maybe create an exception for more housing availability there. The FAA does own a significant part. We do have to pay them back, so we have to look at the logistics of that and see if it is an option. We'd also need to look at the environmental benefits from transforming the airport into housing. I mean, there's a huge lead-based aviation pollution issue there. One of the biggest things I've heard in regards to that is, well, you know, we use the airplanes to detect methane, and we use it for science, but now there's a company based in Boulder called Long Path Solutions that actually uses laser and satellites to do that, so we don't necessarily need airplanes to monitor that anymore. I advocate for grocery and neighborhood stores with safe multimodal transportation in that area, as well as connections to the 28th Street business area. I think that's a great area that we can develop. As for planning area 3, I'm not in favor of it right now. I would support analysis to see what it would take to provide city services to that area. It is a little bit far out. There's more opportunity to connect to utilities with redevelopment and sustainable infill within our city first. I think we need to look at the low-hanging fruit before going for these big ones, and maximize the space that we have available. I'd also like to work with CU. CU accounts for about 30% of our city's population, and they have created a large burden on the rental market in our city with their increased population of student body. So we have to work with city to see how can you redevelop and how can you infill on CU-owned land first to fill that need for your students, and then we can let the residents of the community who don't go to CU have more opportunity for housing around the city. It's definitely a big topic to process, but I think we need to just go about it in a sensible, sustainable way. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
for there to be more deliberation beforehand. Like, I think either one of these creates a huge potential, and I don't think we should just use that potential on just like a bunch of affordable housing. I think the potential here is either one of these places is somewhere that we could explore some radically different ways of doing housing, or some radically different ways of living together. I would like for us to explore the possibility of creating a little micro eco-society there where we're like really prioritizing ecological harmony, where we're prioritizing neighborhood connection, we're prioritizing community centers, we're prioritizing all the resources being in one place, such that it becomes very possible for people to stay in their neighborhood and connect to community and really create meaningful relationships. So I think that either one of these places could work. I think I lean in the direction of the airport, but there's a lot of drawbacks to it, and this is where community feedback is really important. Like at City Council the other day, there was a 17-year-old girl who came and spoke against using the airport because she's getting her pilot's license, and I can empathize with that. Like, flying sounds amazing. I would love to get my pilot's license and fly, and I have to like ask the question of, do we want to be moving in, is more planes the direction we want our society to be moving in? Because we also have a chance to say what is the world we want to live in, and how do we demonstrate that in Boulder? And I suspect the world I want to live in may involve less planes, because that involves less pollution. And so I'm wondering if there's a way we can take a stand for that in Boulder, and also take a stand for using this space to model a different way of living together as a community in a way that can benefit the whole Boulder community. So that's my idea.
Okay, four things. First, I think Silas makes a good point. Jacques might have said something too on this. We need to work on smart infill, letting people live near where they need to go within our existing footprint of the city. We have to do that, no question about it. And there's other spaces that I would add. Boulder Junction, Phase 2, there's things happening there. Iris 28, there's a development happening. It's really exciting. But number two, it's not either or. We should be looking at these spaces. We have such an incredible need that we should be looking at these spaces now actively, and thinking about the opportunity to take land that has not been developed, in which we are not locked in to decisions of the past, and we can create more people-centered, transit-rich, lovely places to live that are well-connected to the rest of Boulder. On airport, a couple things. Quick disclaimer. I am as a member of the Transportation Advisory Board, I am a liaison to the airport as a community process. There's three boards that have liaisons. I'm a part of that process. I don't want to presuppose any outcomes. But what I will say is that I wrote an op-ed on this with Philip Ogren, who's from the Housing Board, and we made the suggestion that we ought to be very clear about the opportunity costs as we go forward, no matter what we do. And those include, what do we do with 179 acres in a community that could, it's probably $50 million, I don't want to, I haven't praised it, but I mean, this is an incredible asset for the city. There's about 200 planes there, and there's some other activities. We should look at the ledger. In general, we should be doing this in our public policy making. We should be considering the opportunity costs, making it transparent, making a considered decision as a community. So I guess my thought is, let's do that, and let's make sure we know what an affirmative, positive vision could look like, and then let's decide what to do about the airport specifically. We could put a lot of houses there. And it's going to turn into a pumpkin. This is not, if we don't, whatever happens in the next couple of years, it's going to lock it in. So if we do not do this, and again, I'm not saying we need to do it, but if we do not decommission, turn it into housing, it's probably not going to happen, because there's a big FTA legal
Right,
process.
sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt. You're done.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Sorry.
Let's see, where do I want to start with this? I'm going to start with an elephant in the room we have not discussed yet, and that is the fact that we are on stolen land, and we are on that land through broken trees. So I don't use the term privilege. Remember I talked about the investment that my ancestors made? I know that investment was on stolen land. So even though I have every right to be here, just as much as anybody else, I also know that I have responsibilities and obligation to our tribal, federally recognized tribes, as well as our indigenous communities. I have extensive experience working in and with indigenous communities across the country. Having said that, in all of these housing conversations, I haven't heard anything about what we're going to do with our Arapaho, Cheyenne, Shoshone, Ute community. no conversation at all. So I'm curious about that, and working with the Native American Rights Fund to have conversations about a micro-community or something like that, where not only just for living, but for also ceremony and things like that. I also wanted to lift up this need for community space. As I'm going through these elections, I am now acutely aware of something that nonprofit communities in our, nonprofits in our community have been telling us for a long time. But again, it's like the Nancy Reagan syndrome is what I call it. It's like, it's not an issue until it comes to your doorstep. And that's kind of how all of life is, right? Until you can actually feel it. Like, I'm a breast cancer survivor, so now I like have a whole new appreciation for like our medical care system. And I'm also an adult child of an addict, so now it matters to me what recovery looks like and all of those things. Thank you. My larger point is even in these particular lands, I'm talking about habitat for all, not just humans, but also our wildlife. You know, I'm coming from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I can tell you, all of this can't be housing everywhere. We need rich biodiversity restoration in everywhere. People see these flat irons and they think we are good. I am here to tell you we are not. So that is where I am concerned about decommissioning anything and all of the different things. If we're not talking about biodiversity restoration, we are going to set us up for ghost towns out there. That is exactly what's going to happen. Also, water. I was in NOAA's drought management assessment with scientists around the world. They are telling us that we need to make structural changes to our water infrastructure right now for who we have now.
Thank you, Paige.
The magnificent.
So we have questions from the audience, and I think I would like to bring up one quick thing for information, because somebody brought up something that I meant to say before. In the planning reserve north of Boulder, the 600 acres, the city owns about 300 of those acres. So for what it's worth, the discussion about what happens in the planning reserve will come before the council whether it wants to or not, because somebody will apply for annexation during the comp plan update. So anyway, just a heads up that that area north of Boulder, the city owns 300 acres and owns 170-ish acres at the airport. So there's 500 acres of city-owned land in these two. All right, so I'm going to start with a question from the audience, and we'll give everyone 1 minute to answer the question so that we can get through as many as we can. And I think we're going to, are we back to, Jock, are we back to, we started with you that time, so we're with Silas. So this question, he won't. Jock,
Really want me to
okay, all right,
I'll make it brief. I will make it very brief.
Okay, so this is, I'm just going to read the question, we'll take 1 minute and go down the answer. These are from the audience now, not from me. So, would you support a harm reduction facility that provides a path to rehabilitation with 24/7 supervision until a person is recovered and provides a clean drug supply to people who are not willing to rehab? So I think the real question is, do you support a harm reduction facility
100%.
supervised through the city?
Yeah, 100%. This is something I've seen across other cities. I actually went to university in Washington, and Seattle was one of the first major cities to approach this harm reduction solution. The way they went about it was safe injection sites. I don't necessarily think that's the right way that it should have gone about. I think it's that rehabilitation facilities that are regionally accessible and 24/7 for people to come in, and when they're going through withdrawals or they're going through some sort of symptoms, they just overdose, anything like that, we provide the opportunity for them to sober up and address the issues of mental illness. Addiction is a sign of mental illness. It's been proven across the board, whether it's, from whatever trauma has caused that, we have to address these issues and find solutions to help people see the light within themselves.
Perfect, thank you very much. Aaron?
Yeah, yes, we need to bring people back in. We've been excluding people based on, we don't like this behavior, we don't like that behavior, and we need to bring people into spaces where we can actually address the behavior. So right now, there's a lot of people addicted to very harmful drugs, and if we're continuing to say, where people don't have space to talk about that, to rehab, then it's going to keep happening on the streets and it's going to keep getting worse. So I do think safe injection sites is an idea. I don't know if it's the right idea, but I think it's a decent idea that we should definitely include in our conversation. I think in general we need centers for harm reduction. Centers where people can come in and talk about talk about what they're going through, like potentially like use their substances in a safe space where they can get help and where we can actually work to address like the root addictions and actually help people. So yeah, we have to bring people in.
Thank you very much.
So I think I get the question, and I think the answer is yes, or if I understand it correctly. But we have an incredible problem with opioids, fentanyl, and all kinds of addiction, and that includes people that are homeless and live in homes. One of the unfortunate publications of the year is the coroner's report. It comes out each year in the fall, and after natural causes, suicide, followed shortly after by cars, is the thing that kills us the most. And our children, our teens, are some of the most at risk. So I think emphatically yes, if I understand the question correctly. And we need more experimentation on ways to address the problem. We do have a county facility, but we need people to be able to check in and spend more time in more of a retail environment, if that's the right word. But just being able to check in, we need that locally.
Super, thanks very much. Tasia?
So one, I strongly recommend watching the documentary, the limited series called Painkiller. That was all about Oxycontin and everything, and I was like, ooh. But I actually was not all that, ooh, because I remember the first war on drugs. So I'm an adult child of an addict as well, so I can be impacted with things, right? But I share that because I've seen recovery very, very up close. I've seen failed efforts, right? Failed efforts is putting to a detox center, but not having transitional and sober living. That's just whistling in the wind when we do that. So I'm not about putting good money after bad if it's not connected to the rest of the work. I highly recommend that you also take a look at Streetscape, which is led by somebody who was formerly unhoused here and give a lot, and who has had recovery issues as well. And that plan also includes what that continuum of care needs to look like. Thank you.
So this is one area where I feel like City Council in Boulder often does too much work. Not in this specific area, but we often make the mistake of thinking we're geniuses and our opinions matter in terms of truth and efficacy. There's experts out there, and Taisha referred to some of them. There's stakeholders out there. And I think looking at their advice and following that is our role, not our vaunted opinions on this. So what works? Generally, there's a fair amount of criticism of the needle sites. The need for them is understandable because people are getting diseases through dirty needle use. But anything that can move people past addiction and back to wellness is what we should follow. And I think that's for us to listen and harness the expertise of those who know far more than we.
Okay, great. We'll start with Aaron for the next question. This is one I think everyone's going to be teed up for. Boulder's open space system is one of our city's premier programs. What does City Council need to pay attention to and do in order to ensure the future of our open space system?
I love this question.
1 minute.
I'll start with a little anecdote. I was just buying a lawnmower off someone on Facebook Marketplace and had a quick conversation, and it turned out he's a software engineer who created a business writing a program to help manage for natural land management. So we had a great conversation about open spaces. I think we need to have a much more systemic approach. It needs to involve a lot more collaboration. A lot of there are open spaces, but proper solutions are going to address working with the county, working with the state. And what I think we really need to be focused on is ecological regeneration. I think Taisha spoke about restoring biodiversity. We need to work to increase biodiversity in our open spaces. So I think to address things like flooding and wildfires, that happens through cultivating a healthy and resilient ecosystem. And so we need to be working with nonprofits, working with the community to implement programs that are going to help us generate that ecological resiliency and regenerate our lands.
Perfect, thank you very much.
I'll try to cover two things. My first place to go on these questions is what does the science say, what does the climate science say? And for folks who are climate nerds, you know about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, doing a big assessment report every few years. It's super wonky and deep, but this is the place to go if you want to know what is the best state of knowledge on how to manage interface with climate and human interface. And one of the big ideas that we get pretty resoundingly clear now is that there's sort of in general two types of development. There's compact, efficient forms of community in which we can be car light and reduce the need for motor vehicles and all kinds of transportation mass. Or we can have a sprawl form in which people, it's a much more expensive from an energy and otherwise standpoint, which tends to be the form that from the 70s built in the US. So I go to this and I think to the question, to the extent that we can reduce the need for car dependence as we drive up into the canyons, the canyonlands and around the state and into our open space specifically, and let people bike and bus and do so, not to say you have to do it because you need to, but because make it be comfortable and convenient and easy. I think that will be great in a lot of ways. The other quick thing is just, we've got climate, are we done? Okay, I would just double down on natural solutions and biodiversity protection is going to be even more important. We're experimenting as climate. Okay, start face, you're going to feel me off the face. Okay,
I'm sorry to finish, I'm distracted by, I'm trying to.
Sorry, I was programmed for 2 minutes. I went
Sorry.
It's okay, it's 1 minute, and
1 minute's chance, sure.
Sorry. So, I mentioned that I just spent a mini master's degree essentially sitting next to and engaging with the Colorado Department of Natural Resources as I served on the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission. And I raised this because when we look at open space, I'm actually going to be a part of the keynote panel at GovCon, which is our big tourism conference. And I'm on that because I'm also a part of, I'm on the advisory council, I'm an expert around a lot of things. But I'm on it because what we're trying to do is balance people and planet, even on our open space. We're seeing our open spaces, historic recreation on our open spaces right now, which is displacing our wildlife. Even the trail itself, whatever you're doing on it, does not matter. That disruption happened. Imagine when water goes down and we've got all those trails, the water goes there and not where it needs to go. So again, I am already on the front lines of this issue, not only here in Boulder, but across the country. And so again, I will continue to use that knowledge, wisdom to continue to bring people together and make decisions. Thank you.
thank you. 1 minute.
So yeah, open space is something very dear to any of us who love Boulder. It's one of the founding kind of defining principles of what makes Boulder weird and wonderful. We think of open space just by the title of it being this wild flower, meadow of nature. But as Taisha, some others have mentioned, we're abusing our open space all the time. We recreate there, we walk off the path there. Anytime you go up to Chautauqua, as I mentioned in another forum in this same room, there are a half dozen professional photographers who are licensed off-trail. They should be fined. Those fines should be used for trail maintenance. We also have cows on open space. As a vegan, you can imagine I'm not a huge fan. Tebow, who has endorsed me, tried to bring the buffalo, the bison back. We could do that instead of the cows that we rent out for very cheap to the farmers. Same thing with recreation. I'm a big cyclist, but we can do so in ways that are safe. Okay.
Thank you, Waylon.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank
1
you.
minute, open space.
Just to clarify, the cows do help with fire mitigation. The NCAR fire was extremely successful because it didn't spread because of the cows, essentially. So they are doing their part. So I am a huge conservationist. Being Raised in Boulder, our open space is what led me to my education of sustainability. We've essentially maxed out all the open space land that we can buy, but we need to continue with trail maintenance and carbon sequestration, supporting our local flora and fauna that are delicate, and we have a very delicate ecosystem. When we have social trails and people walk around, take photos, it allows the invasive species to grow and actually further removes our invertebrates and I think there's like 50 or some 100 types of bees that have actually evolved specifically in Colorado to pollinate our local flowers. So it's important that we continue to push for conservation. Quick plug, Harlequin's Nursery in North Boulder, they have the best flowers that are all native to Boulder.
Harlequins.
Did we start with you? No.
I think I might.
Okay, so Ryan, this one's for you. Sorry, not gonna go twice. All right, again, 1 minute. When you walk around town, what is the thing that bothers you most, and what would you do about it? Do I have an hour?
There's 30,000 young people, under 18 kids, and they're trapped. Well, maybe not. Maybe once you're a teenager, you're not trapped. But if you have kids that go to elementary school and they live a mere few blocks away, you would probably not send them on a bike to get to school. Our streets are deadly, they're dangerous, and they don't have to be that way. And we have, our kids are isolated. They're being ferried around in cars, and most of us don't even think about there's an alternative, although there is. And the rest of us are socially isolated. Most of us, and we have a growing senior population that does not find it safe, comfortable, and convenient to be outside with our car traffic. So it's an untenable situation that we've got 30-ish people will die each year in Boulder County on the roads. That's true the last couple of years. We were at 16, I think, in my last count. So last week, we can fix it.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Taisha, when you walk around town, what is the thing that bothers you most, and what would you do about it? 1 minute.
The biggest thing that bothers me the most is the perception versus reality. Oftentimes, this is a perfect example, this library. Isn't it gorgeous? It's gorgeous. And yet we had to fight like heck to make sure that it was appropriately funded. We made this badge in our makerspace. Right, we have our little campaign t-shirts there as well, right? But we had to fight because it was operating at 65% capacity. That's what our city is doing right now. I talked about the AC. I have 100 examples of our infrastructure not being ready to support the big moves we're trying to make. So I want to fix what we got going on right now, the tactical issues ahead, but also the visioning necessary with the appropriate data to get us there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I hear this question, my face does a lot of things. How long do you have? Well, 1 minute. It's not long enough. Mature trees getting cut down all the time, many because of climate and bug infestation, but I would have to go generally with what Ryan said. If we can fix transportation and make it fun, make it equitable, make it climate not only friendly, but climate healing, that'll help transform Boulder into what it kind of used to be. I grew up biking back and forth to school. I was badly bullied in 7th grade, and biking back with my best friend, 2 young boys crying a fair amount, kept me alive, quite honestly. Protected bike lanes. I always say, people like me might bike every day, but we're not going to have families, we're not going to have seniors, we're not going to have those with disabilities feeling safe if they can't bike safely. Beyond that, we should appreciate Boulder. There's room for fun, and I'm out of time.
Perfect. Thank you, Waylon. Good job.
So a couple things. I would love to see more green energy in Boulder, more battery storage technology, more solar gardens. If elected to council, I would push the Public Utilities Commission and Excel to do more for the people who already have solar and for the people that want solar. We need to increase net metering exchange rates to reward those people who already have solar. And we also need to remove the connection fee. Excel actually charges you to hook up solar and connect it to their grid. I think that's ridiculous, and it's pushing people away from their goal of getting solar. Another thing I'd love to see Boulder do more of is water conservation. There's not enough talk about water conservation. We've been very lucky this year with increased moisture. But we need to be able to retain this. Something I'd love to see pushed is gray water recycling. Willville North, actually, the big tall building over on CU campus, has a gray water recycling system where all the shower and sink water is recycled back into the toilet water, so you're reducing the amount of water consumption needed. Third is transportation that everybody else has touched on. I believe it's critically important that we bring back our transportation to everybody who can't bike or walk everywhere.
Super, thank you very much, Aaron.
Yeah, I definitely feel bothered by a lot of the car stuff, and but I think that the place I actually want to go to is what bothers me the most is honestly what's happening with the unhoused. It bothers me to see so many people suffering from drugs. I know a lot of people who've been in that situation, being unhoused, people who've been addicted to drugs, and it bothers me. It bothers me that so many are suffering, and it bothers me the level of apathy on the streets, the level that so many people want to just walk past and pretend like it's not there. One of the things I really respect about Silas, the imaginary voice we've been hearing, is he walks around wearing a free hug shirt, and I've seen him hug so many of our unhoused, and I think we need more of that. We need people who are going to actually acknowledge these people as fellow humans. So that's what bothers me, and I think we do that through doing like what Silas is doing and actually reaching out and being open. And I know that's hard, but I think we have to.
Thank you. All right. So we have a few more questions, but I don't think that's the right way to kind of end this. I'd like to give each person a minute and a half to just close about why we should think about voting for you. You know, the elections are coming and we do have to mark our ballots. And I'd just like to give each candidate 90 seconds for a closing statement about what your values are and why you'd like us to vote for you. And Taysha, if you're ready, we can start with you. 90 seconds and just closing goodbye.
My eye is on the sparrow. That's why you should vote for me. Because I'm not just looking at my shiny penny issue. I'm looking at all the issues all the time and finding creative pathways to address the responsibilities and obligations from our discriminatory past and co-creating pathways with this upcoming plan. We can do it different together. We can make a more inclusive and equitable that's responsive. It's not charity. But most importantly, it needs to be climate and culturally resilient, or there is no 7 generations after. Your great-great-great-grandchildren will not exist if we make compromises and center humans over habitat for all beings. Thank you. Follow me at Adams for Boulder. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Please, I assure you, the rest of the Boulderites don't know. You know more about local government than the rest of Boulderites that know. I've been here 11 years, I can assure you. So please spread the word. Then you'll be like, oh, well, they know stuff. So please spread the word. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we already talked a little bit 5 hours ago about, our biography. 5 hours, right? We're tired. So I served on the board of New Era, Colorado, with Steve Fenberg, our state Senate Majority Leader, Joe Neguse, our congressman, and many other amazing people. Molly Fitzpatrick were associated with it, Shab Murray, Leslie Herod. I am well practiced at listening and not talking when I don't need to, finding the advice of experts, and focusing on solutions. We work to get young people active in the political process, which is often intimidating and off-putting. And we did that very effectively. We actually fought Excel to a draw or beat them for many years with other groups in Boulder. You were talking about the limits Excel puts on our green energy use even today. We worked on civil unions at the time, that dates me, and plastic bags and many other issues. So I want to actually get to solutions on affordability, we've talked about, on homelessness. The lucky thing there is public safety and homelessness are kind of the same issue in many ways, not completely. Other people have talked about a more holistic definition of public safety that can include climate and fire mitigation, which I'm very passionate about, and then climate is the third issue. I'm going to work for coalitions toward solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why you should vote for me? Well, I'm a true environmentalist. Everything I've done my whole life has been centered around the environmental side of anything. All of my large career opportunities have been with sustainable transportation or sustainable energy companies. Everything I do is, or everything I will do on council is to reduce our carbon footprint and create equity through sustainable solutions. I have family values. I still take care of my family. My dad actually has dementia, so I moved back from Washington to Boulder to help take care of him and assist. And I plan on continuing these family values across and making sure that every voice is heard and that we don't necessarily, even if we don't see eye to eye, that we don't stop there. We find the middle ground and increase our dialogue. A lot of my friends actually have been pushed out of Boulder due to cost, and a lot of them live in Broomfield, Golden, Denver, Thornton, which is a little bit more affordable for their income. And I think it's critically important that we have a young voice in politics. I'm 27 years old, and I think that everything we need to do has to have a voice from anyone from 5 years old to 99 years old. Everybody should be included. Thank you.
Jeff?
Well, I'll start out by saying I honestly do not think you can go wrong voting for a single person on this stage. But my job is to tell you why you should vote for me. So why you should vote for me is I'm listening, I'm looking, and I'm learning. I'm really bringing an open mind and a fresh perspective to the issues we face in Boulder, and the willingness and the capacity to collaborate. I'm here and I'm going to be here. I'm going to be in communication with any of you who want to be in communication with me. I'm going to be in communication with our community, with our council, with our neighbors. I'm going to continue showing up. I care deeply about who Boulder is and what Boulder is, and I am going to do everything I can to continue nurturing that beautiful potential, which means caring for all the people here and helping this be a more welcoming place for more people, and helping Boulder to be a place that we can really be proud of. That we can be like, I live in Boulder, and what we're doing here in Boulder is amazing. I want every one of us to be able to say that. I want every one of us to feel proud to be in Boulder, and I want every one of us to feel like we're a part of it. So I'm going to do my best to include all of you in the conversation and work together to create something really beautiful. So that's why I think you should vote for me, and I really look forward to being in communication with all of you and working together to represent Boulder. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming, thanks for listening. I guess I'll try to close with 3 points. So one is that I, as a member of the city's Transportation Advisory Board, I've gotten to know some of the inner workings of doing governing. I've gotten to develop relationships with a number of staff, especially in the transportation department and elsewhere, and through that have become part of our policy making. And so one of the 2-year work plan items the council is working on is this new system of protected bikeways. It's an incredibly big process. It's helped to change the way the transportation department is seeking funding and doing its work in important ways. And I've come to understand that I can legislate, and I know where the levers are to do things. And I'm really excited to make sure that we have an ambitious 2-year work plan coming up that's going to make things happen. The second thing is, I'm glad that a lot of people are talking about climate action, and it's going to be great to have hopefully a majority that's going to be really serious about climate action. This is something I've been working on since 2007. I'm endorsed by Run on Climate. It's a national climate organization, so Boulder Progressives and Better Boulder. I've studied with Greg Unruh, who's the founder of Carbon Lock-In. Anyway, I'm close to the work technically and really excited, in part because climate is touching so many things, including the nexus with homelessness, the nexus with wildfire risk, and there's just so much for us to do around this space. So I look forward to contributing to that process. And finally, my kids, I'll wrap up quickly. My kids are in school now for 13 more years, and we're on the streets every day moving them around, and I'm incredibly invested in solutions, including for homelessness and making our streets safe.
Thank you, Ryan. Big thank you to the Boulder Newcomers Squad. I want to say to all the candidates, thank you so much for all the work you guys run for office. I know how hard it is. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank Sam for moderating and conducting and educating. And again, thank you to the panel today. You are on the hot seat continually, and will be that way for 2 months. And Really appreciate your coming. Paul, I think we have a very important announcement about restaurant reservations.
So 12 of you have made reservations for our dinner after, and we have 2 reservations, and I have names of the 2 people who have